games. That just adds another element and another bit of hot air to the surroundings at Williams-Brice Stadium. So make your travel plans accordingly. Phil Kornblut, Pat Daniel here in Columbia, joined by Chris Bergen from the Bergie Palace and Matt Smith from the Smith Conclave, and they're not all that far apart. One's down in the Georgetown area, and one is over in the Florence area. Smitty covered Clemson on Saturday. I was at South Carolina. Bergie had basketball, but keeping an eye on Coastal Carolina as well. Football up at Army. So we got all that covered for you. Drop in some notes, but it's all about South Carolina and Clemson, Clemson and South Carolina, regardless of how you want to phrase it. And tonight we'll take your official prognostication. Give us the digits when you call in and you talk about the game. Do not leave without giving us your prediction. And the phone number, 888-898-2525. 888-898-2525. That is the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. Let me welcome everybody in. Bergie, how are you? Hope you had a great weekend.
I did actually. Thank you. It was good to be back with you guys after missing the tail end of last week. But had basketball on the brain, and actually on Saturday, since I did not have basketball, the Myrtle Beach Invitational was Thursday, Friday, and then yesterday had a chance to go down to the SCISA state championship games down in Charleston. My wife's an athletic trainer for Lee Academy, and they were playing in the 1A title game. Came up short against Patrick Henry, but props to Charleston Southern. They do a very, very nice job of hosting that event. And with that out of the way now, we put South Carolina State on the clock as they get ready for the high school league state championships in a couple of weekends. And hopefully they will do, and I'm sure they will, as good a job hosting that event as Charleston Southern did with SCISA.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And Smitty, welcome in. You were up at Clemson Saturday. You saw a heck of a game. Tigers could have been buried. They could have been buried early. They dodged the dagger. North Carolina couldn't knock them out, but give credit to Clemson for making some defensive plays to save the day. And then the Tigers got it going offensively and had some big plays of their own, overcame a mistake here or there, and they get a quality win at home. And now they're feeling pretty good about coming to Columbia.
Well, they should. A lot of positive momentum for Clemson, and all the head-scratching, heartbreaking turnovers that Clemson had early in the season, like obviously the goal line fumble against Duke, and they had some tough turnovers against Miami, NC State, the missed field goal against Florida State. All those things seem to have been turned in the last 3 weeks for Clemson, and uh, playing with tremendous passion. Some of it has to do with the way the schedule has shifted. And Clemson's been so good at home. 6 wins or more at home for 13 consecutive seasons. The next closest team was Coastal Carolina with a streak of 3. So they've just been awesome, just awesome at Death Valley. Tremendous home field advantage. Of course, they'll lose that. They'll lose that this week. But, Corn, you hit on something, and I hope I properly expressed this. If you follow us at SportsTalkSC.com, after each of the games, one of us, me, Phil, or Pat, will post a post-game recap, and we try to do it kind of in the heat of the moment and try to share some of the emotion that was a part of the night. And two things I really wanted to express and get across, and I'll share them again here, is North Carolina moved the ball at will early in that game. If you were in the press box, a lot of us were looking at each other thinking, oh boy, is Drake May's about to go off. Drake May is going to have some kind of Doug Williams performance here against Clemson. He was thrown off his back foot. He was rolling away from pressure. Clemson had no answers early, but what they did is they were able, as you said, Corn, they were able to counterpunch defensively and force 2 fumbles, and Clemson recovered both those fumbles. So it seems like the bounces have evened out. Those 2 fumbles that Clemson, one went through the end zone out of the pylon, and Nate Wiggins was, Coach Sweeney said, one of the greatest hustle plays he's ever seen. He won't forget it for the rest of his life. He's going to share it with each successive group of Tigers and show them what's possible if you just get after it. And, of course, Peter Woods put his shoulder pads on a Marion Hampton and caused a fumble inside the 10, and then Clemson pounced on that. Those are the plays that were going against Clemson on the road at Duke, against Clemson on the road at Miami, against Clemson on the road at NC State. Now they're going in Clemson's favor, and that's part of the momentum. And that's what I wanted to point out, is it's almost like it's 2 different teams out there. Clemson was unsure of itself early in the season. Cade Klubnik, first year as a starter. Garrett Riley, first year with the program. Now in the second half of the season, they're growing together. And I don't know that Cade Klubnik and the passing game are truly clicking. They're not revved up in fifth gear. But I do think that what Garrett Riley now understands is better understands the strength of this team. And the strength of this team is, the old Clemson, James Davis and C.J. Spiller, that was thunder and lightning. Now, Will Shipley and Phil Maffa are like, I don't know, sledgehammer and bricks. I mean, they just keep coming at you and are so difficult to tackle. And I think Garrett Riley finally realizes that's the strength of his team. That's the heartbeat of this team. It energizes the crowd and it energizes the offensive line when Will Shipley puts his pads down and runs through arm tackles. When Phil Maffa takes direct snaps like he did and runs through North Carolina tacklers into the end zone and looks like he won't be denied, it looks as if the 85 Bears couldn't have stopped Phil Maffa from getting in the end zone. And then the crowd goes crazy. The linemen are jumping on each other. It seems like Garrett Riley now says, okay, now I know how to call this game. I know the strengths of Cade Klubnik. I know the strengths of this offense. And that's what's made Clemson so dangerous in the last 3 weeks. Not just the fact they're playing better, not just the fact that some of these games have been at home, but I just think Cade Klubnik and Garrett Riley and Dabo Sweeney now know each other better than they did at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, all makes a lot of sense. Yet they still had a costly fumble. They did miss a field goal. Some of the demons that they've had to deal with all season, they continue right to the end. As for the Gamecocks, electric night at Williams-Brice Stadium. Fans are great. I do know that Shane Beamer, and to his credit, but then again, it gets used against him because people are pointing out, see, the fans leave at South Carolina. He made it a point after the game to talk directly to the students that sit in what's the area called the cockpit, which the whole stadium should be the cockpit, but they just call the student section the cockpit. So be it. But in typical fashion, they were there early and loud and packed in the first half. And then for whatever reason they choose, they don't come back for the second half in a SEC game, a one-score game. And, that's bothersome to the head coach because he wants that student support. He wants the students to be there the entire way through. And I think the rule at South Carolina is, correct me if I'm wrong, if you leave the stadium, there's no coming back. Yeah, you can't come back in. So I know some places do allow you to come back. They don't allow that in Columbia. So he wants the students to stay, and justifiably so, because it doesn't look good. Number one, on television, because you can see where the cameras shoot across, they can pick up the open spaces where the students have left around the band section and also upstairs and in the upper deck. And of course, you're trying to sell recruits on the fact that you have great fans, which they do, but that they stay and cheer for their team all the way through. So that was a message loud and clear from him after the game. But otherwise, it was a
USC is not immune to that, by the way, Phil.
well,
The
sure, I'm sure,
students
yeah,
students bail at virtually every college football game I've ever been to. The only way you keep them in there, and no university would ever do this, is to run free beer into the student section. That's the only way you would keep them there.
you got to get them drunk.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah,
But that's part of the reason, and it's sad. But let's
yeah.
be realistic here. It's part
That's
of the
how
reason they leave.
Chris, I believe that's how you met your wife, isn't it?
It's the only way I could get her to go out with me. I know that.
All right. So anyway, as far as the actual football was concerned, it was a great football game, a typical slobber knocker between the Gamecocks and Kentucky. They play physical, typically moderately scoring games, and the Gamecocks had a great drive to open the game and a great drive to end the game, and everything in between was pretty much mush. But I tell you what, that was a super drive they put together to put the winning score on the board when they had to overcome some really difficult field position situations, long distances to convert, and they converted them all. What can you say about Xavier Leggett that hasn't already been said? The guy is super. He's got to be one of the top 5 receivers all time at South Carolina, and to consider that he did it. He did it. He's made his name really in one season. Started coming on some last season, but really made it in one big season. That's a compliment to him. Rattler continues to be very good at home. I mean, the numbers weren't overwhelming in terms of the total passing yards, but the completion percentage, he got off to a great start. I think he hit 12 of his first 15. then cooled off a little bit. Showed some more in the running game, which if you watch Drake May, Drake May's a more pure runner than Rattler is, I think. But Drake May made a living against the Clemson pressure by going up the middle, where the middle will be open, especially if they're playing man. We'll see if South Carolina tries to take advantage of that. Will we see more Lenora Sellers? Will Juice Wells play? Last night, Beamer said he's not lying. He's not playing any games with anybody. He has not declared Wells out for the season, as some have. He could not say if he's going to play Saturday. It's day to day. So Wells has hinted on his Instagram some things about, maybe playing Saturday. Just going to have to wait and see if number three shows up in uniform through warmups out there with them. But it was a big win for them. Clean in November now, three in a row, back to 5 wins. Everybody knows what's at stake besides the state championship. This is the only championship Clemson can win now if you don't count a bowl as a championship. They can't win the ACC, can't win the national, can win the state. And the same thing for South Carolina. And of course, the Gamecocks, they won't be totally out of it from a bowl standpoint because of 5 and 7 teams getting in based on the APR. If they don't win, but if they win Saturday, of course, that will clinch. I think if Clemson wins, I would not be surprised if they ended up in the Gator Bowl. Now, that would makes a lot of sense for me from a Clemson standpoint, history, location, the fact that Clemson fans will be energized by winning 8 games the way they did, sweeping November, beating South Carolina.
Hmm.
I think they would be energized. I think historically they do great in Jacksonville fan wise. I think that the Gator Bowl would take a long, hard look at Clemson should they get that 8th win. If not, people got them going out to San Diego as a penalty for losing to the Gamecocks. So
That's not really a penalty, though. That's a pretty nice trip. I've also seen them locked into the Sun Belt, the Sun Bowl out in El Paso, Texas. That would be an interesting trip for Clemson. And I'll go ahead and say this from the Gamecock perspective. If you guys don't beat Clemson this weekend, do the honorable thing and not go to a bowl game. Turn it down. 5 and 7 teams do not belong in the postseason. Heck, 6 and 6 teams don't belong in the postseason, but
mm,
this is where we are. But if you can't even have a winning record, you should not be participating in the postseason.
I agree. It won't be their fault. It's simply because there's not
No,
not
I
enough
understand.
6-win teams, and now they go to the APR rankings and where the 5-win teams stack up in terms of their APR. All right, real quick, let's start the week by going ahead and throwing it out there. I've got Clemson. I said this at the Sumter Touchdown Club on Friday. I kind of left the door open to adjusting some things based on what happened this weekend, but nothing really happened this weekend. South Carolina came out of their game injury free, and Clemson has an issue with Bo Collins, who apparently can play after tearing his, or help me out here, Chris, plantar fasciitis.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, he can. Apparently, it's not a season-ending type of thing. They think he might be able to play. All
Wow.
that being said, after watching Clemson, I understand. I'm taking into consideration home game for South Carolina, home field advantage. I think when all the emotion wears off and they just get down to about, the emotional last 6 or 7 minutes, when they get down to about the final 50 minutes of playing football, Clemson's running game, I think, will be too much for South Carolina's defense. Klubnik is a third runner you have to consider. Plus, he can be dangerous with his arm. The receivers, the receivers can burn you, including you got to keep an eye on Brenningstool, the tight end, wherever he is. He's a very dangerous receiver. And of course, you cannot discount that Clemson has the much better defense, and their secondary is playing much better. And they're probably going to put Nate Wiggins on Xavier Legette and say, follow him everywhere and
That'll be
shadow
fun.
him. Yeah, that would be
That'll
a
be fun to watch.
fantastic
Yeah,
matchup. But the
that'll be fun to
Gamecocks don't
watch.
really have anybody else. Simon's come on a little bit. Can't count on Wells. Marion Brown some. Now they'll do some things. I liked what they did. I liked what Dowell Loggins dialed up with Lenore Sellers in the backfield. Some they put Leggett in the backfield. Some they're gonna throw the kitchen sink at that Clemson defense. I just don't think they can block them. The evidence is too strong that Clemson takes great quarterbacks and turns them into average players in that particular game as far as passing quarterbacks go. 30-17 Clemson. Chris, what you got?
I think the key to this ball game, because I think you laid it out perfectly. Clemson's defense by far probably the most dominant force. I think South Carolina offensively and the passing game much better. even with the dinged up wide receivers. I still like South Carolina's passing game more than I like Clemson's. I think I like the Tigers' run game considerably better. I don't think anybody could argue that Phil Moffitt and Will Shipley aren't better than whatever else USC can run out there. My question is, how will Cade Klubnik handle an environment like he's going to see on Saturday? He's never played in this game. He's never played on the road in a hostile atmosphere like this. Take NC State and Syracuse out of the mix. I mean, they can't match up with what USC fans are going to throw at him. I think that will affect him. But the one calming influence he should have, and as Smitty pointed out, and I thought it laid it out extremely well, was that they finally figured out what I've been telling them to do all year, and that's lean on that running game. And I think that because of that, I think Clemson's able to run the football, maybe shorten the game a little bit and keep and limit the amount of times that Spencer Rattler has the football and has a chance to make plays the way he did against Clemson last year up at Death Valley. Kind of like you, I think it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of a 30-17 type ball game, Clemson, because of that defense. I just don't know that South Carolina can move it and score enough unless, and here's the big factor, unless Cade Klubnik plays like he has on the road. You look at he's like Spencer Rattler. Rattler has been terrific at home, the Kentucky game notwithstanding, and not as good on the road. Klubnik's been terrible on the road for the most part, with the exception of the Syracuse game. I mean, he's stacked up passing yards, but he's turned it over. He's thrown interceptions. He's fumbled the football away from home. He's not the same quarterback on the road. And this is as hostile an environment as he's going to see thus far in his career. If he doesn't turn it over 3 or 4 times, I think Clemson wins. But that's that factor that you can't eliminate with them because they do turn it over. They are turnover prone, and I think if they do, that keeps the Gamecocks in it. And if South Carolina's in it going into the fourth quarter, I think they might win it. If they're in it, if they're tied or ahead going to the fourth quarter, I think they'll do what they did last year and find a way to win. But I'm just not sure they'll be able to take it to the fourth quarter.
Great equalizer will be the turnover. Smitty, what you got?
Yeah, I agree with much of that, guys. Let me add one element to it. Usually we talk about third down, and Dabo Swinney's just talking about third down. One of the things that's helped change the fortunes of his team recently is just how good they've been defensively on third down. I'm going to give you a different take. Fourth down for this reason. Two, number one, Shane Beamer knows he's outmanned. I think he's going to be forced to go for it on fourth down, not late in the game, early in the game. Those plays would really change and shift the momentum. Those could be big plays. What South Carolina does on fourth down, I think they might go for it a little bit. And number two, special teams. Clemson's kicking game is shaky. That's a compliment. Shaky at best. Failed fake punts in the last 2 weeks.
Well, exactly. Let me say something here. Will somebody please send Dabo Swinney a note? You don't fake punts worth of crap. I mean, you really are terrible at faking
trying out
punts.
Limbo.
Oh my gosh! Go ahead, Smitty. I'm sorry. I just had to get that out there.
To me, that's important, and I don't think they'll try. I don't think Clemson will try one. Will South Carolina try one? So South Carolina, I think they'll be outgained in this game. Clemson will outgain South Carolina. I feel very comfortable in saying that. They're going to post more yards, but fourth down and special teams play can really turn and shift the momentum in a ball game, and South Carolina's at home. I still think Clemson wins. I think it's enough. I think an angry, healthy Will Shipley, a focused Phil Maffa, and a Cade Klubnik playing with some confidence, I think it's enough. And South Carolina's offensive line, they were almost as bad against Kentucky as they were earlier in the season. They're a mess. They miss too many assignments. You miss an assignment against Clemson's front four, you might put Spencer Rattler in the hospital. You've got to be careful. If Peter Woods gets a free look at you, you're in real trouble. You might end up on crutches. So I've got Clemson winning 31-24. I think South Carolina wins fourth down, but I don't think it's enough. I think the Tigers' defense and running game wins the day.
Pat, we're all in agreement to this point. 3 for 3 on Clemson. You got what?
I'm also taking Clemson, and I think there's a few factors trying to touch on things that you guys have not already hit, and I think you guys hit on all the big ones. But just to take a little bit step further, it's going to come down to turnovers, in my opinion. Turnovers and special teams. If South Carolina can force Clemson to turnovers, like South Carolina has successfully been able to do in each of the games along this current 3-game winning streak, including 2 forced fumbles and an interception this past weekend against Kentucky. If South Carolina is able to do that and able to win the turnover margin, we've seen enough times this year from Clemson that they lose. They're not able to overcome that. Dabo Swinney has harped on that fact throughout the season as the main reason for their 4 losses on the year. Chris hit on the fact that Cade Klubnik has not played in an environment like this, and that's very true. He has not. The kicker has not kicked. No matter which of the kickers for Clemson kicks field goals, neither of them have ever kicked in an atmosphere like this. So that will come into play. And to back up what Shane Beamer is saying, part of what will make that so difficult is if the students are there, especially in the fourth quarter, if it comes down to a potential game-winning or tying field goal in the end, or maybe a late game 2-minute drill drive from Clemson where Klubnik is facing that pressure on top of the crowd noise, the atmosphere, that will heavily weigh into the Gamecocks' favor. And then to take another thing with the special teams, I look at last year and you had 2 key turnovers in that game by the Tigers on special teams. At one point, I believe it was in the second quarter, Phil Maffa attempted a lateral during a kickoff that was then a turnover. And then later in the game, on the final punt of the game, you had I believe it was Antonio Williams fumbled that punt right there at the end of the game that did not end up giving Clemson a chance to come back and try to win in that or to hold on to that game. And I think that may play a role this year. Now, is this special team squad for the Gamecocks what it was a year ago? No, it is not. But Pete Limbo has proven time and time again to be a good enough coach, good enough coordinator where he may have a pretty solid game plan to come out and force some turnovers or some critical special teams plays in favor of the Gamecocks and against the Tigers. So I really do think it may come down to that simple as the turnover margin, who wins that, who's able to win the game. But I do personally, I don't think this game will come down to the fourth quarter. I think it might be a little closer to the score 2 years ago in Columbia when the Tigers won 30-0, as opposed to last year when the Gamecocks won 31-30. I'm not saying that they'll shut out the Gamecocks by any stretch of the imagination, but if I had to say a score, I'm going to go 31-17 or maybe 31-20 Clemson.
Yeah, you're right around where I am, 30-17. Okay, there you go. Those
Yeah,
are
but
our thoughts.
when does Dabo pull out that ill-advised punt fake? At what point in that ball
Huh.
game does he do
That's what
that?
I'm saying. I think he should probably have learned the lesson. I'm sure people are saying to him, hey, don't do that anymore. You're not good at it. You don't choose wisely when to do it, and you don't execute it well. I mean, North
Well,
Carolina was not fooled at all
yeah,
by that.
I was going to say the Georgia Tech one was bad. The one against North Carolina this past weekend. I mean, who did he think he was fooling? And then what? They snapped it to Tyler Davis. Is that right? Is that what I
Yes.
heard?
Yep.
And tried to run it. I mean, you've got 2 of the best running backs in the country. Turn around and hand it to those guys. That's what they get paid for. Davis gets paid to stop people running the ball, not try and carry it. He outthinks himself on that kind of stuff and unnecessary. When you got a defense as good as Clemson's, go let them do their job.
Well, I mean, all coaches, I am amazed. Like, I'm watching the Packers yesterday, and they've got 4th and 1, 4th and less than 1. No, I'm sorry, 3rd and less than 1. You got A.J. Dillon back there. So what they tried to do on 3rd down was run a wide receiver, kind of a jet sweep. Gets thrown for no gain. Now it's 4th and 1. Turn and give the ball to A.J. Dillon. No, they throw a pass
Mm-hmm.
behind the line, and he's tackled. So, I mean, coaches that make millions of dollars that know the game inside and out, it does boggle the mind sometimes what they do with play calling when just the simplest thing will get it done. Keep it simple, stupid, which is what
Maybe
we're
Tyler and
doing.
Spartanburg was right.
I'm not going there. But keep it simple, stupid, which is what we're doing, and that means get into your calls after the break.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast: cloudy with low dipping to 54. Tomorrow will be wet, especially in the afternoon and evening. Some heavy rain expected and a high for the day at 68. Wednesday is nicer as the rain clears out in the AM and the sun pops out for the afternoon. Thanksgiving Day, a mix of sun and clouds and 62 the high. Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
Signing up for health insurance can be confusing.
Lurie Life and Health reviews your options and gets you the discounts you qualify for.
Last year, I didn't call Lori Life and Health. Bad decision. I didn't get the discount or the coverage that I needed.
If you're just signing up or not happy with your current plan, we'll find the one that's right for you.
Thanks, Lori Life and Health. You made this so easy.
I'm Joel Lurie. We'll simplify the process. It only takes a few minutes to sign up, and our service is free. Call 803-256-2067.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting wildfires have prompted the evacuation of campgrounds in North Carolina and Tennessee. While firefighters are preparing for high winds today, officials are hoping for some help from rain expected on Tuesday. A North Carolina Forest Service official says a youth camp and about a dozen homes were evacuated as a wildfire spread in the Soratown Mountains in Stokes County. No injuries or damage to structures have been reported. In Tennessee, an official says an evacuation was ordered at a campground on Whitwell Mountain as a wildfire stemming from an escaped campfire spread. The red flag warning also led officials to close campgrounds and most roads in the Smoky Mountains as a precaution. On Wall Street, the Dow by 203 points, the Nasdaq rose 159, the S&P advanced 33. This is SRN News.
It's the most wonderful time of the year, Black Friday at Shooter's Choice. Yes, this Black Friday's pricing is going to absolutely blow you away. Shooter's Choice will be dropping unbelievable deals this Black Friday weekend. The doors open at 6 a.m. on Friday to all the deals, and the sale continues throughout the weekend. You get to be a part of the biggest discounts ever held on Black Friday at Shooter's Choice. That's right, it is all weekend. 3 full days, deals exploding only at Shooter's Choice. Firearms, ammo, scopes, suppressors, gun safes, and accessories, all on sale. Prices store-wide so low, it'll leave you in shock. Now remember, there are limited quantities on some of these items, so make it a point to shop early. No rain checks on Black Friday sales. I'm telling you, without a doubt, this is the perfect time to save hundreds of dollars. Fill that Christmas wish list. Follow Shooter's Choice on Facebook and Instagram for an early release of those Black Friday sales, and make your plans for some serious price reductions on hundreds of items. Do not hesitate. Visit Shooter's Choice 6 a.m. Friday to kick off Black Friday weekend. You will not be disappointed. In West Columbia on Sunset Boulevard, make your first choice, your best choice. Make it Shooter's Choice.
Hey, I'm State Representative Chris Wooten.
And I'm State Representative Micah Cassidy.
Join us on Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. on The Rep.
We'll talk about everything that's happening at the State House and give you an insider's perspective.
All from the General Assembly. So join us at 9 a.m. on The Point, 100.7 FM or 1470 a.m.
Hey, it's Jay with the Cigar Militia, Columbia's premium cigar store. Notice the change in weather? Some people call it fall. We call it cigar smoking season. Or better yet, it's football weather. Come in and check out our humidor and do what I do and get your go-to stick or try something new. We've got an awesome staff willing to walk you through and help you find your new favorite. And besides, you're going to need some celebration cigars for when your favorite team wins the big game. The Cigar Militia, 1410 Colonial Life Boulevard.
Oil investments involve a high degree of risk and actual results may vary. Attention all investors. The year is almost over and your chance to receive a 100% tax write-off for 2023. Why pay the government more of your hard-earned income while smart investors use proven strategies to reduce their payments to Uncle Sam? You can save thousands of dollars this year off of your taxable income with an investment in domestic energy, while at the same time generate potential income from oil for decades to come. With the current crisis in Israel, experts on Wall Street are predicting oil prices to go up from $90 and could be up to $125 a barrel. Take advantage of the enormous profits that both companies and producers of domestic energy have been experiencing. Hurry and take action before December 31st. If you do nothing, you'll pay your fair share. Or act now and let your money go to work for you. Call Freedom Crude today at 800-549-1985. That's Freedom Crude, 800-549-1985. And let us put your money to work for you. 800-549-1985.
The AARP Fraud Watch Network can help you keep yourself and your family safe. To learn more, visit aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork for news and tips on how to spot common scams and to learn about and report scams in your area.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Talk Media Network, right to your phone calls. Just give me a second. I want to mention a couple of things here very quickly. The Citadel basketball team won a game today. They play in a tournament, and they defeated the Idaho State team. So the Bulldogs pick up a win in basketball. And I mentioned this to lead into another quick little note that happened over the weekend. And this is by no means making fun. I'm just pointing out that, by the way, 62-61, Citadel wins. A.J. Smith had 19 points. The Erskine, Erskine's had a little bit of a tough go of it. in football, men's and women's basketball combined going into the weekend. Between those three sports, they had lost 54 games in a row.
Ouch.
54 in a row, football, men's and women's basketball. That's tough. However, their basketball team won on Saturday
Nice.
to break the streak. So
Yay.
congratulations to the Flying Fleet getting on the board there with a W, and maybe that'll be the start of something very special for them. Other basketball, you got South Carolina women tonight at home against South Carolina State, unanimous #1 in the rankings this week. South Carolina State playing at Tulsa and Charleston Southern at Bethune-Cookman. Okay, to your phone calls.
Whoa, 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 whoa. You're not going to touch on the men's basketball? I mean, wouldn't it be interesting? We've talked about the struggles the two football programs have had if when Clemson and Carolina meet in December, if they're both undefeated.
That's true. Well,
Those guys are playing well.
It's been a
the Gamecocks last ago of Grand Canyon is a huge win for them. That's a tournament team from last year and preseason favorites in the WAC.
Well, it's November to remember for the Gamecocks and the Tigers. When you add up the football teams are 6-0 combined. The men's basketball teams are 9-0. The women's basketball teams are, I believe, now 8-1, or is it 7-1? The USC, of course, is undefeated. Clemson has one loss, but that was to USC. And the women's soccer teams in the Elite Eight of their tournament, and the men are in the Sweet 16 of their tournament. So it's been a great month of November, and one of them is going to have an even bigger thing to shout about come Saturday. All right, now to the phone calls. Oh, we should mention too. Congrats to Wofford on a huge upset win over Furman. Furman, however, still getting a number 7 seed in the FCS playoffs. They'll have this weekend off. Congratulations to Buddy Pugh going out a winner. Career over at South Carolina State. What a great career it was. We'll have him on the program here next week once we get through everything this week with the South Carolina Clemson game. Now with that, we want to call 888-898-2525. Make sure you share with us your prediction on the game. Want to hear what you think about what is going to happen, and love to have some digits with that prediction. Bobby in Charlotte, you're leading us off here. Palmetto Bowl Week 2023. Go right ahead, sir.
Well, I wish I could come on here and argue what you guys have already said in the first segment, but the first couple of segments, but I'm afraid I can't. I mean, the way I'm looking at this, guys, I mean, unless Clemson does some stupid stuff like they did last year, I mean, you guys brought up the Phil Maffa special teams turnover. Remember that was just a dumb play where they did a little fake huddle in the middle of the field, and just totally. It was hilarious because it came after the safety, and then they fumbled it, and then we wound up scoring a touchdown. So it actually wound up, being a net positive for us. But if they don't do stuff like that, or if I kind of joked I wanted to send Brandon Streeter a fruit basket after he quit running the ball in the second half because we had no, we had no prayer of stopping Shipley and Maffa, and I might need to send Stoops a fruit basket for. I'm pretty sure Ray Davis didn't touch the ball in the last 3 drives Saturday night, so that was nice. But guys, if this game's straight up, I tend to agree. It's going to be. I think it's going to be a 2-score kind of a cruise game for Clemson, because honestly, are we any better than Notre Dame? Are we better than Georgia Tech? Are we better than North Carolina? Obviously not better than North Carolina. And when you look at what I've kind of watched this season, Clemson's defense is legit. Last year you could throw on them. We couldn't run on them at all last year, but we could still throw it on them. This year, I'm pretty sure they're top 10 in the country in passing yards allowed and in opponent passing efficiency. So, they're getting it done with the defending the run and the pass. And look at the 3 teams that we've gotten hot against. Jacksonville State, it was a nail biter in our own stadium. Vanderbilt, that's like playing a Division IV team. And then, Kentucky came into this thing bruised and battered and just got whopped by Alabama. And then you look at who they've beaten in their 3 games, Notre Dame with Sam Hartman. And here's the thing, guys. Not only they beat Hartman, they beat Georgia Tech, who's mediocre, but they're certainly on the rise, it looks like, and they've got a good young quarterback. and then obviously North Carolina. All three of those teams, I would say, have very good quarterbacks. And certainly, I'm not saying they're better than Rattler. I'm just saying they're all three legit quarterbacks, but they also have great running backs. Estime with Notre Dame. Georgia Tech's a top 15 rushing offense in the country right now. And of course, North Carolina, man, that kid, they have the beast. If he just would hold on to the ball across the 6-inch line, they might have gotten out of there with a win. And that's what scares me, fellas, is Clemson basically controlled all three of those teams with their defense, and they had to go up against not only a great quarterback, but a running game as well. And we're fourth from bottom in the country in rushing offense right now. So, I mean, I'm just afraid Rattler's going to be running for his life. Kentucky got a lot of pressure, as you guys said, and Clemson's not going to have to do anything special to stop our run game. And I hate to say it, but I've been very impressed with their secondary the back half of the season here. And I can't wait to see Leggett against Wiggins. That's going to be a hell of a matchup. And but I do think it's going to wind up being, I hate to say it, it's going to be a pretty comfortable win for Clemson, unless they get stupid with the ball and turn it over, and then anything can happen.
Give us a score.
I'm going to say Clemson 31, the good guys 17.
31-17. Thank you. Good hearing from you.
Hey,
over
Pat.
in Charlotte. Appreciate that very much. And by the way, Ray Davis carried the ball 4 times in the fourth quarter for Kentucky, but his last run was a 7-yard gain that gave them a first down on their last possession at their own 35. Then they had to go the air 4 times and 4 incompletions or a short completion on the second pass, and South Carolina got that batted down pass to end the game for them. So they didn't forget about him totally, but I guess circumstances were they needed to throw the ball there on that last drive in particular. And remember, South Carolina had that drive that led to the touchdown. That was a pretty time-consuming drive, so they ate up a pretty good bit of the fourth quarter. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, Pat, if you don't mind, how about get Bobby's resume and his and save that little thing. If we ever need to hire somebody as a fill-in host, I think Bobby would be a good candidate.
Yeah,
he
That's
was
about
terrific.
as good a breakdown. That's about as good a breakdown of this game this weekend as anybody could give.
I was hoping he'd stick around long enough we could get his feelings on the Panthers. I'm guessing he's a Panthers fan from being up in Charlotte.
That wouldn't
He's
take
probably like the
long.
rest of us. He just gave up on them.
That wouldn't take long. All right, thank you for the phone call, 888-898-2525. Hank in Columbia, you're up next here on Sports Talk. Welcome in. Good to have you with us.
Hey, Phil. You need to go ahead and get Bobby an orange shirt and some purple pom-poms also.
Oh, you think hey, no, he said he was a Gamecock. He said he was a Gamecock.
Oh, I hear, but I know it's bad, but Phil, yeah, like I said, give him an orange shirt and some pom-poms. Now, you know, I'm not going to say whether Carolina would win or not, but it doesn't take a miracle from an act of God for Carolina to win. I don't think it's that bad because, one, if you look at every year we play Kentucky, it is a flower knock of the game. You remember last year's game went down to the end, and the year before that when Kentucky beat us, it was a 3-point game where we were trying to drive to win. So that's just how Kentucky plays because Stoops is a very good defensive coach. Now, if Carolina were to win, one, if Rattler gets hot, Clemson has to start bringing pressure to get him. You know, if they start bringing the pressure like they do, then you know, Leggett could have a game. You know, Leggett and Brown, those could have a major game. And really, last year we didn't try to run it to beat Clemson. We actually threw and used enough running just to offset some things. Secondly, if you just like with Kentucky, the reason they stopped giving to them because they kept on getting into 3rd and long because other than the 2 top plays they got for running, the defense was getting them into 3rd and long, which means you had to throw the ball. And my thing would be if Rattler gets up or gets us at least even or up to make Klubnik have to throw the ball. I mean, they can hand it to Moxley every time, and then we'll just see if they can hand it to him 100 times and see if they just continue to run down our throats. But if you force them along and make Klubnik have to throw the ball down, the field. Now let's see how he's going to look in that atmosphere.
Well, if they can stymie the running game in some fashion, if South Carolina can somehow slow down the running game, and Hank, thank you for your phone call. If they can slow down the running game, that's going to give them a great chance
No
because I
doubt.
think they would love to put the game on
Mhm.
Klubnik's shoulders. We have seen where at times he succumbs to pressure moments and makes bad decisions, makes bad plays. In that setting, if they can get to his head, I'm not talking about physically, I'm talking about mentally, where he's seeing ghosts out there, they'll have a chance. They'll have a chance. But you know, I just don't. This defense, it is what it is, and they have held their last two opponents under 300 total yards, which is a step forward. Now you have to consider one was Vanderbilt, and Kentucky this past weekend. They did a better job. Um, is it fool's gold, or are they actually getting better? Are they actually getting better play at linebacker? I did think their secondary was better Saturday night. I did think Eman Worry, who plays all over the
He
place,
was great.
was fantastic. I thought DQ Smith stepped up. They did not have Fortune because he was suspended. He should be back this week. They had to run some other young guys out there. Floyd had to play quite a bit, and of course they've been playing um, Collier a lot and Kilgore, of course. It's a young secondary, just like Clemson's had some young secondary players. But getting Wiggins back, he went from the seriously. If anybody went from the doghouse to the penthouse, it was that guy because he was in the doghouse for 2 weeks, and he comes back and really shines and shows why he is considered a top NFL prospect at corner. I mean, not just that rundown play, but his cover skills. Even when they completed passes, he was right there. The ball had to be right in that tight window. He was right there on the receiver. The matchup with Leggette's going to be one for the ages,
Yes,
I
it
think,
is.
in this series. Okay, let's go to the break. We'll come back with more phone calls. So don't go away. Plenty of time for calls. 888-898-2525, South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. We're all going to need a vacation after this week for sure. So why don't you call Jimmy Smith at pauliesvacationrentals.com and let him hook you up. 843-237-4246. The weather's still nice. The beach is still wet. The golf courses are still green. Jimmy Smith, pauliesvacationrentals.com, 843-237-4246. Be back in a moment.
I'm attorney Jim Corbett. That's the sound of a big hit on you and your car or truck. I've been an attorney for more than 30 years.
to none. We will win the total of yours is 450. 450 against your defense, you four gentlemen, talking about the Tigers. 450 total yards offense against your defense. Rattler you will get the strike of the Rattler. He will get at least 380 yards past the touchdown. But we gonna take you. Come on down. You done got the old man. Boy, you four gentlemen, you done got the almost blood boiling. You got it boiling. So I ain't gonna give you. I'm gonna give you a prediction, but I'm probably gonna change because we got something. Tell you, buddy, you don't know what we got. We got a surprise for old Dabo. It's going to be, I'll say, but I'm going to put it this way. I'll say Clemson 24, Gamecocks 37.
37-24.
37 against your defense. Just that great Tigers defense. 37 points. And Mr. Field don't get mad at me, but you got my blood boiling. Go Gamecocks.
All right.
Love all y'all.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, I forgot, Hank, if you're listening, I know you are, we forgot to get your predictions, so call back and give us your prediction. You can give it to Pat off the air. Put that down on the list. I forgot to get it
I
from
will say
you.
this, though, from Gamecock Larry's prediction, I can't imagine Spencer Rattler is going to have that good a game. I think he'll be solid. But if they rush for 70 yards, because if you subtract what he said Spencer Rattler was going to throw for versus total offense, I think they win the game if they run for 70 yards against Clemson.
If the Gamecocks run for 70 yards, that's not a lot of yards.
No, it's not, but they don't run for a lot of yards.
Yeah.
I mean, 70 yards rushing for them would be probably enough to keep Clemson just off balance enough.
I wonder how much we'll see of Lenoris Sellers. They showed him a fair amount, not a great amount, but a fair amount to give you something to think about. If you're Wes Goodwin, you got to kind of consider what South Carolina might do, the different looks. They put Leggett in the backfield. They showed Lenoris Sellers. I think they were really trying to give Clemson something else to think about and work on this week.
I mean, keep in mind, they only had 50 yards rushing against Kentucky.
Yeah,
do you think Clemson's defense is better than Kentucky's?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's not like they went up and down the field. Like I said, between their two drives to start and end the game, they didn't do a whole lot. Nothing in the second and third quarters. Be right back.
Here, thank you for pushing the button. I thank you. Programming thanks you. America thanks you.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. The next couple of days may be difficult travel-wise if you're heading out for family gatherings. National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Mullins, if you live on the East Coast and plan to leave Tuesday for the Thanksgiving holiday, you may be in for a wet commute.
For those in, say, New York and Boston, it stays generally dry throughout the first half of Tuesday, but then it gets wet leading up towards the Tuesday afternoon rush hour. And then it's pretty damp at least through Tuesday night.
To the west, areas of rain and snow will blanket much of the Great Lakes region, with showers also developing in eastern Minnesota and the western upper peninsula of Michigan. CEOs of big tech companies have been subpoenaed to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee to testify about the steps they're taking to keep children safe online.
Chairman Dick Durbin and Republican ranking member Lindsey Graham fired off a subpoena on Monday to the CEOs of Discord, Snap, and X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. In a press release, the senators say members will get a chance to question the CEOs about what they call their failures to protect children online. The hearing is set for December 6th. Bob reporting.
A federal appeals court is mulling whether to restrain the former president and current presidential candidate Donald Trump, who's asking the judges to free him from a gag order in his federal election interference case. Judge Brad Garcia pressed Trump's lawyer to explain why they shouldn't take proactive measures as opposed to waiting for more threats to occur.
Essentially, what the district court is finding is we have a past pattern. When the defendant speaks on this subject, threats follow. And now he's making similar statements again. We're months out from the trial.
On Wall Street, the Dow up by 203 points, the Nasdaq rose 159, the S&P advanced 33. More at townhall.com.
If you're trading or thinking about trading in the stock market, listen up. Last year, a staggering number of Americans were forced to take out withdrawals from their savings. Worse than the dot-com bubble, housing meltdown, or pandemic crash. Those could all feel like a blip compared to what some Wall Street analysts expect may be coming as soon as December. Some are calling it the market tsunami, and it could wipe out billions of dollars in the markets. But before any of those things happen, Vantage Point's AI analyzes billions of data points in seconds, so you get highly accurate predicted market conditions in advance. Text the word money to 813-813 more in a free online class. Text MONEY to 813-813. Text the word money 813-813. Trading involves financial not suitable for all investors. Past results do not guarantee future performance. By texting, you agree to the terms available at VantagePointSoftware.com and consent to receive calls and texts using automated technology about offers or info by or on behalf of. Word consent is not a condition of purchase and can be revoked at any time. Message and data rates may apply. Text the word money to 813-813.
There's good news for holiday shoppers and shippers.
Looks like you don't have to worry about your holiday packages getting where they're going on time. UPS, FedEx, and the Postal Service say they are up to the job this holiday season. UPS is hiring 100,000 employees to meet the peak. FedEx is also hiring in some locations and says it's ready for the holiday crush. The U.S. Postal Service has hired 10,000 seasonal workers, and although all of that sounds great, ShipMatrix, the shipping data company, has this advice. Don't wait until the last minute to send your packages. I'm Rita Foley.
American Airlines flight attendants are asking federal officials for the right to go on strike, possibly before the end of the Christmas and New Year's travel rush. But American said there was no possibility of a walkout over the holidays. News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast: cloudy with a low dipping to 54. Tomorrow will be wet, especially in the afternoon and evening. Some heavy rain expected and a high for the day at 68. Wednesday is nicer as the rain clears out in the AM and the sun pops out for the afternoon. Thanksgiving Day, a mix of sun and clouds and 62 the high. Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
As a kid, you dreamed of being a firefighter one day. Now, the opportunity is yours. The sound of silence. Live your dream. Become a part of a team, a family. Visit scvolunteerfire.org to find out more.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Okay, we're back with you on Sports Talk on this Monday night. A reminder, of course, it is Thanksgiving. I'm not reminding you about that. I think you know that. We're on the air Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, taking Thursday off, back on Friday. Also realizing a bunch of you are heading out, maybe starting today, tomorrow, certainly Wednesday. Make sure you download. One of the things you need to do, of course, is check your oil in your car. Make sure you have a full tank of gas. Inflate those tires properly, and download the Chief Sports app. Those things should be all the things that you do before you go on the road, because you don't want a flat tire, you don't want to run out of gas, you don't want your engine to blow up. And checking the oil. That is a great little app. Get our show, many other shows. Jamie Bradford put that thing together, and man, it's happy to be a part of that. Okay, back to your phone as we promised. We got recruiting coming up too. Also, Zach will be here to break it down at 7:30. So we're not going to leave you shorthanded there. 888-898-2525. We next to Keith in Camden. Keith, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Hope you're well. Happy Thanksgiving. Good to know you.
Good to talk to y'all tonight. And good to know me. I'm not leaving. I'm still going. Yeah, I'm going to try to hang around a little bit.
There you go.
You know, look, we are who we are. Saturday night, we are blind, but words can't describe how bad they maybe go back to the North Carolina game, but if that, I think Beamer said this is the third week we've had the same ones working together.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, well, maybe we need to flip that up because it was pretty bad. But look, the only way we've got a chance here is, I mean, Legette's legit, but there is a big fall off. If they go and try to stifle him up, if somehow Houston play, to me, that's a game changer. Having two people that are capable of pushing the defense might make this a little bit different, but realistically, you gotta be honest. I listened to the other night when you gave the prediction. Much as it hurt, I think sometimes the truth does hurt, but the only way we really have a good chance in this ball game is 3 turnovers. Somehow the line shows up that it's only shown up sporadically throughout the year, and Juice plays to help get. And who knows what can happen, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw out there 34-20.
34-24.
Yeah, and one thing, Phil, it doesn't seem like, I'm sure we're running scripted plays early on. That seems to go real well. Then we get a lull where the defense adjusts and, we struggle a little bit. But I think we're going to see a lot of what we saw from Kentucky. That's a good defensive football team outside of last week. But, I don't see us lighting it up.
No.
So hopefully nobody gets hurt, but 34-20. Y'all have a good one, and look, I hope all of you have a great Thanksgiving.
And same to you.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.
All right, good night.
Thank you very much. Great hearing from you. Yeah, Clemson's defense again. They have made a history of making really good quarterbacks ordinary in the passing game because of their ability to rush the passer and to force the passer into mistakes, throwing the ball he wants to, and things like that. And of course, their secondary play I think has picked up in the last little bit. And you look at their most recent games, passing yardage. The Tigers have let's see here. The Tigers have given up 209 to North Carolina, 137 to Georgia Tech, 146 to Notre Dame, 138 to NC State, I think, if I'm reading this right. Of course, they lost that game at NC State. So, but here of late in November, as they've started winning games, they have done a better job in that category of putting pressure on a good quarterback and making a good quarterback look pretty ordinary.
Now, to play devil's advocate on the other side of the coin, Rattler did torch them last year. 360 yards passing and a couple of scores. He did throw 2 picks, and Carolina couldn't run the ball against them a year ago. 55 yards rushing. I go back to the point Larry made. If they get 70-plus yards rushing, I think they've got a real chance on Saturday.
And Rattler had a rushing touchdown last year, too, and it seemed like every moment throughout the game that the Gamecocks needed a big play, Rattler stepped and delivered.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No doubt about
He's
that.
a difference
but
maker.
Remember now,
they've got the better quarterback.
That was a 14-0 game, Clemson. They had the Gamecocks reeling, and then Rattler to Wells happened. if my memory is right. They hit that deep ball, and that just sort of turned things. I think that kind of gave the Gamecocks a bit of a belief that, okay, we can hang in here. We can play with these guys and just hang in there long enough. And maybe they thought Clemson would make mistakes. And think of the mistakes that Clemson made. I think Pat touched on most of those. The botched fake on the kickoff return, the fumble punt at the end. Now, South Carolina had theirs too. Remember, they were going in to score, and Rattler throws the interception in the end zone. So, I mean, a little bit both ways, but they just sort of hung in there and found a way to win. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't believe they're going to have that opportunity this year. I just think Clemson they found a little something, and maybe it's ironic or maybe it's funny, you know, when Clemson was high flying with their offense and Morris was the offensive coordinator. I mean, Clemson would score in 3 plays. Boom. You could almost be guaranteed, especially when it was Watts and Trevor Lawrence, and they had those the bevy of outstanding receivers. They come out, they run a couple of maybe they might run an inside run, throw a little screen pass, and bang, somebody's going to be open down the field. Jacoby Ford, touchdown. Sammy Watkins, touchdown. Higgins, touchdown. You just name the receiver. And that's the kind of offense they had back then. It was quick paced and it was fast scoring. Now, I mean, they've kind of turned the clock back, even though this air raid offense, which is what was supposed to be the offense of Garrett Riley, it's not anywhere close to that as far as what you expect of an air raid offense. We do know that he loved to run the ball at TCU too, and he had a quarterback who was outstanding running the football. They're not running Klubnik to that level. I think Klubnik's runs are mostly coming off of pressure and bailing out on the pass rush, I think. I mean, I know there's a few called quarterback runs, RPOs, and all that lead to the quarterback run. But most of the runs I see where he makes big plays are in scrambling mode, where he's flushed out of the pocket and he uses his natural speed and instincts to take off and hit a gap and go pick up yardage. So,
do you think a couple of those you just mentioned are because of personnel? Like maybe there's not a deep threat receiver without Antonio Williams this season. Tyler Brown is the best I could think of that may be Endo as well, a little bit Stellato, but especially Antonio Williams being out as long as he has this year. You just don't have that deep threat like a Jacoby Ford mentioned there that actually really had the Sammy Watkins had that down burner speed. And I can't help but wonder if also the reason we haven't seen Klubnik run more is because of the lack of depth at the quarterback position. It almost might be a fear. Remember, we saw similar with Trevor Lawrence after Kelly Bryant transferred. We didn't really see Trevor Lawrence as he then did the next 2 years because there was that lack of depth behind him.
Yeah, could be. All that's possibility. They certainly do not have a quarterback ready to go should to Klubnik. Nobody has played a meaningful snap the entire season besides him at quarterback. All right, back to the phones, 888-898-2525. South Carolina's in a bit of a tussle. Jackrabbits of South Dakota State, 15-13. South Carolina leads, 2:26 to go in the first quarter. As we get to Brian in Goose Creek. Brian, welcome into Sports Talk tonight. It's good to have you with us from down in the Charleston area. How are you?
Okay, and you guys are doing okay?
Doing great. Good to have you with us.
Oh, wish I was following my good buddy there, Gamecock Larry, but I'll take third behind him.
Yep.
Hearing all these people already, yakety yak, yakety yak, yakety yak. Brown, he stopped on a route. The ball was overthrown. Brown had a chance to catch the ball across the middle. He dropped it. So that's their big threat receiver. They have Rattler yet. They played against him last year. They haven't played against Super Mario yet. And there's going to be a big Tonka truck running all over in the backfield.
Yeah, he's playing well. He is playing well.
Stop, and you said what was the kid's name, the quarterback?
Klubnik.
No, you said, it's Clunker. His name's Clunker.
Clunker.
It's a clunker.
Clunker.
Yeah.
Clunker.
Clunker. Beat up car.
Yeah.
Clunker. That's what he is. He's a clunker. The reason he can't run is because they don't want him to run, like you just said. Depth at quarterback. Well, all of that's going to change come Saturday night. Like I said, Tonka truck's going to be running all over the backfield, plowing up the ground.
Well, he has played really well, Tonka Hemingway. You got to give him credit. He's played really well of late. Had some big plays against Kentucky, and they put him in the backfield when they're down near the goal line and use their big lineup there and get the ball in his hands.
Well, see, 7 yard. We're not going to have 80 yards, 80 yards, 100 yards. That'd be nice, but when we're in the red zone, Mario runs to the end zone, it ain't going to have to be yards. You're going to have probably 3 touchdowns if they let him run the ball.
All right, what's your final score? What you got?
Oh, I got 5 good guys, maybe 20 for them clowns
30,
up there, the northwest corner of the state.
30,
Gamecock Larry, Cleveland, brother. We're going to get this one. Because when the Rattler strikes, them boys better not take the helmets off. When they take the helmets off, the head's going to swell up, and they can't put the helmet back on. They're going to run out of players before halftime.
Are you saying they're going to get the poison? They're going to get the poison?
If they get struck by the rattlesnake, they better not take the helmets off, because they're going to look like a bunch of Hindenburg around on the sideline. Ain't going to have no helmet big enough to fit their heads.
No. Thank you very much. Good hearing from you. We got you down. We got you down 35-24, as you put it. Good. Okay. Thank you very much. Let's hit the break, and we'll come back with more. We'll clear the lines and take a fresh run of calls. 888-2525 is our phone number here on the South Carolina Education. Very lucky number into Sports Talk. Go ahead and grab a line, and we'll get to you when we come back from the break. And also mention the Braves today signed Nalez, 3-year, $30 million backloaded deal, $8 million fourth-year club option, and a $4 million buyout. He's a righty, been a reliever past seasons, but he has started some. Hit the break. Be back in a moment.
Touchstone Energy cooperative members save more on electricity, and more on insurance, groceries, healthcare, restaurants, concerts, and sporting events through Co-op Connections. Touchstone Energy is an alliance of the electric cooperatives, and as a member, the power is yours. Experience the power of co-op membership with Energy and find out how much you can save on electricity and a whole lot more at touchstoneenergy.com.
Lawyer Lisa. Experience the difference with Lawyer Lisa.
Hi, this is Lisa Hostetler Brown. If you or a loved one are over 65 and completed a long-term care planning consultation, now is the time. Did you know that if you aren't able to afford the high cost of skilled care, your assets can be rapidly depleted to $2,000 unless you plan 5 years in advance? Visit lawyerlisa.com to see how we can help.
7511 St. Andrews Road, Irmo, South Carolina.
George Bryant here with Tsunami Bar Sports, and wow, Tsunami now, an amazing technology that you can use when you train receiving large game without having to endure pain. Please explain.
George, that is the magic combination. I have 3 simple words to define that entire concept. Stimulation, not annihilation. Regardless of your training goals, there is a level of stimulation that is optimal for your desired gains. Tsunami Bar's flexible bar technology meets these demands because the user determines the level of stimulation with the amount of speed and force they impart into the bar or training device.
Hey, the Tsunami Bar is a terrific training device, whether you're working on your fitness or your golf game. It's convenient, it's easy to use, and you won't feel beat up afterwards. Be sure to click on the digital ad on SportsTalkSC.com. Get 5% off any order using promo code BBB5. Don't wait. Order today.
Your home is where your memories live. It's where you laugh and where you love. We understand the importance of the valuables under your roof, tangible and intangible alike. So no matter what's around the corner, we'll be there, offering you and your family the support that's made Farm Bureau Insurance a trusted name for nearly 70 years. You deserve more. You deserve a promise. Learn more at SINS.com.
Call me, Alex Satterfield, at 749-9171 for all of your Midlands insurance needs.
Hi, it's Phil Kornblut of the Sports Talk Media Network. We love our high school football in South Carolina, and we love bringing you the scores every Friday night, 10 to midnight. Check in on every region across the state with live scoreboard Friday night, right here on the Media Network.
You've put in the work for your education. The extra early, extra late, extra work. That's because you understand education opens doors to better pay, better opportunities, and a better you. Being educated about playing the lottery is no different. It helps you be one who knows when to play and when to take a rain check. The lottery's a game, so let's keep it fun. Learn more at sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
South Carolina's taste buds have spoken, and they're asking for. There are more than 7,800 farms raising cattle from pasture to plate in the Palmetto State. It's steaks on the grill before the big game, sirloin medallions plated for date night, or burgers with a fake. Make sure beef is a part of your playbook this football season. Smoked, grilled, and slow roasted. Find the best way to enjoy your beef at scattle.org. Beef, it's what's for dinner in South Carolina. Funded by the South Carolina Beef Council, part of the Beef Checkoff Program.
Just looking at the Post and Courier story on the Citadel basketball win tonight by Andrew Miller, and they defeated Idaho State 62-61 at the Campbell College tournament, and they scored, was it 4 points in like 4 seconds? Something crazy like that. They scored, and then they fouled, and Idaho State made the free throws to go up, and then they inbounded and got fouled and made 2 free throws to win the game. They only led for like those last couple of seconds there. So crazy finish, good win for the Bulldogs. They're 2-3, and they led the game for less than those 4 seconds. They're 2-3. They win 62-61. Update the USC women. They're up now 20-15. 8:45 to go in the second quarter. They're playing without Pow Pow tonight. She's got a sprained ankle, and also Tessa Johnson remains out with an injury. All right, back to the phones. 888-898-2525. As we go to where are we going next?
Oh, next we are sticking here locally and going over to Gaston, and we'll be visiting with Nick nearby in the Midlands in Gaston.
Welcome in, Nick. Good to have you with us. How are you?
Hey, man. Yeah, just I'm listening to Gamecock Larry. I love old Gamecock Larry, but oh yeah, you need to sober up between games, buddy. I hate to tell you, but not as young as you used to be. Don't listen to the rest of them guys. I know that's how y'all win. I mean, if you gotta have the 12th man, you got the 12th pack, you 120 proof, whatever it takes to get everybody in a mood to make something happen at Williams-Brice. But I'm serious. People need to sober up between games. Save it for Saturday.
What you got for the game? What's your call? What you got?
30-3. Clemson. 30-3. How about that? I'll give them 3 points.
So
and
you're seeing the defense bringing the business this weekend.
Well, I do know that Jim Harbaugh is not doing the scouting for y'all this year, and there's no COVID happening. So, you know, we'll see what happens. Somebody's going to have to show up.
Nick, we
Y'all have a good one.
appreciate you, man. Oh, appreciate it. He's got Clemson 30-3 as we continue with your calls on this Monday night. Remember, we're with you tomorrow night, talking Tuesday, Wednesday per normal, off on Thursday, and back on Friday. Triple T, also known as Oliver, a.k.a. the Angry Black Man, in Columbia. Welcome in. Choose your acronym of the night.
Good afternoon. Good evening. It's Triple T. I want to ask a dumb question. What kind of Kool-Aid these Gamecock fans drinking?
Garnet.
Oh, okay. They better get off it. And and what's that guy named? Gamecock Larry?
Gamecock Larry. He's kind of supplanted you as the most popular caller on the show.
Yeah, ask him when the last time Carolina scored 35 points against Clemson. Let me say something to you. When Clemson played Clemson football and Dabo don't get out-coached and do them calls, Clemson win. I hope he don't do no bonehead call again. Dabo, leave fake point alone. Just coach the fellas, put the fellas out there, and let the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator coach, and you be the cheerleader. All I got to say, tell Gamecock fans, it's going to be 73, 43, and 4 after the game. Also, it's going to be 52 in Billy Bright's place. We have 52 game in there. It's going to be 53. See you down the road, Gamecock.
Well, give me a score. I need a score. And by the way, the last time the Gamecocks scored 35 was 2018, but they lost 55. That was a game that nobody could stop the other team. For the most part.
I'm not going to give no score, man. I just want us to win. That's all.
Well, you got to give a score. This is give a score week.
Oh, give a score week?
35-7. All right. Thank you, Oliver. Always great hearing from you.
And Phil, I think the last time the Gamecocks scored 35 or more in a win over Clemson was 1975.
Let's see here.
If I'm looking at the history correct, you have to go back to another 56-point game, 56-20.
That was the perfecto offensive night for the Gamecocks. I was at that game.
Well, now, if Dabo Swinney take Triple T's advice and just kind of lets the coordinators go and let the guys go out there and play straight up football, not a lot of TV camera time for Dabo Swinney.
This is true.
Pretty tame post-game interview, right? Maybe he needs a little juice.
The camera will always find the head coach if something goes right or something goes wrong. The camera will always find you. That's for sure.
How about RG3 running down Dabo before the game on Saturday with ESPN? That was pretty cool.
He did that.
Yeah, Robert Griffin III chased behind him.
Broadcast the game.
Really. Be right back.
Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast: cloudy with low dipping to 54. Tomorrow will be wet, especially in the afternoon and evening. Some heavy rain expected and a high for the day at 68. Wednesday is nicer as the rain clears out in the AM and the sun pops out for the afternoon. Thanksgiving Day, a mix of sun and cloud, 62 the high. Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
Welcome to the Sonic Burgerverse.
Burgerverse!
It's like a universe, but with deliciously juicy cheeseburgers. So cheesy. And 2 new cheeseburgers have just made it into the lineup. Bold Hickory Barbecue.
Tangy.
And Garlic Butter Bacon.
It's back.
The possibilities are infinite with cheeseburgers. Burger lineup at Sonic.
Sonic!
See menu for details.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has made an unannounced visit to Ukraine, traveling by Kyiv by train from Poland. Austin is making a high-profile push to keep money and weapons flowing to Ukraine, even as U.S. and international resources are stretched by the new global risks raised by the Israel-Hamas conflict. In Kyiv, he met Monday President Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine's defense minister and chief of staff, and announced that the U.S. will be sending an additional $100 million in weapons. A divided federal appeals court has found that private individuals and groups such as the NAACP do not have the ability to sue under a key section of the Federal Voting Rights Act. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 103 points. More details at srnnews.com.
I sure like to talk about good businesses. Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning is a great local biz. Josh and his team stress customer service as their top priority. Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning came out to my house. I had a toilet that wasn't working right, a garbage disposal that died. They came out right on time, told me everything they were going to do, and explained the price of each repair before even bringing in the tools. I knew exactly what I was getting and exactly what it would cost. Their prices are fair. Their team is courteous and professional. Plus, they did a great job fixing what needed fixing in my home. I am very careful about making any recommendations, and I'm thrilled and confident to suggest you call Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning for any plumbing needs. If it's a repair or to replace something, if it's that tankless water heater that you've always wanted to give you that endless hot water and save you some money. They unclog drain and sewer lines and so much more. Online, you'll find them at SC.com, or just give Josh and those great folks a phone call, 799-2222. That's 799-2222, and tell them you heard about them from here at The Point.
Dave Ramsey here. Do you want your money to work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1936, offering good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
Hey, honey, I know you're taking some meds for cholesterol. I was reading that if you're on these medicines, you should also be taking some CoQ10.
Actually, our pharmacist mentioned that to me already. He called me the other day, and we went through each of my medications together.
Really? He called you?
Yeah, he asked if I was having any side effects, recommended supplements that could help me, and let me know the risk of mixing certain drugs.
Wow. I'm happy to know that True Pharmacy is thinking about us.
True Pharmacy, 1628 Charleston Highway, 3217 Divine Street, or visit truerxsc.com.
This is Ian with AccuClean. With the holiday season and gatherings with friends and family quickly approaching, now is the perfect time to get your carpets, rugs, and upholstery cleaned. AccuClean is a veteran-owned and local carpet cleaning company located in the Midlands for over 20 years. Call AccuClean today at 803-951-1202 to make sure your carpets are refreshed this holiday season. Once again, that's AccuClean at 803-957-1202. We hope to see you soon.
At Temple's Halloran, we are here first and foremost to help the family through their most difficult time, mindful of their financial needs. At Temple's Halloran, we are interested in serving the family, not loading a contract with many options and misunderstood packages. We serve families one at a time. And you're dealing with either Jeff Temples or John Halloran, two funeral directors. They were raised in this area, and they have served the Midlands for more than 60 years. Temple's Halloran.
On the kickoff. Off almost straight on.
Okay, welcome back in Sports Talk Media Network. Monday night, Palmetto Bowl 2023, Clemson and South Carolina. Carolina and Clemson, depending on how you want to look at it. Tigers about a 7-point favorite, about a touchdown favorite in this one. And we'll continue with your later recruiting coming up as well. But right now, it is time to take a closer look at things. The eyes and mind of a coach, someone who's lived it, breathed it, eaten it, puked it, and everything else. Zach Willis. 1st and 10 with Coach Zach Willis. Welcome in, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. It's a big game week.
It is big game week. This is what, really, if you ask me, college football should end after this week. I mean, I know we got the playoffs and all that stuff, but there's nothing better. There's nothing that tops the rivalry game. Anything else that happens is just icing on the cake. But this is the game, whether it's here, Florida State, Auburn, Alabama, Michigan State. I mean, let's face it. This is the one game, these 3 hours, they live with you for the next 365 days, right? More than anything else.
Yes, they do. They live with you for the rest of your life if you're involved in them. I promise you that.
Well, I remember the story when Todd Ellis and Rodney Williams were playing quarterback for their respective teams. There was a story on the two of them, and one of them, it might have been Todd, was quoted as saying that he and Rodney knew that for 3 hours on that Saturday, those two were the most important people in the state of South Carolina. The quarterback, important people in the state of South Carolina for those 3 hours. And it really is. I mean, whether you're somewhere, wherever you happen to be, you're paying attention to what's happening at Woodley Stadium.
Oh, I mean, it's, if you grow up in that state, as I did, I was you had the advertisement for the funeral home. I remember a guy, huge Gamecock fan back in my hometown, when Jerry Butler caught the pass to beat Carolina and Mark D'Antonio was covering him. But he and I talked about that a lot. But he had a heart attack. This fan had a heart attack and never recovered from it.
Really?
Elderly gentleman. I mean, it goes that deep. You know that, Phil. I mean, on both sides. And it's a great rivalry. And I'm like a little kid every week that comes to be a part of this show. To me, there's nothing better. Nothing I'd rather be doing.
Now, it was Mark D'Antonio and Curtis Boyd.
Fortunately, Mark, Coach D, he made a mistake. I don't know what it was. We'll let Curtis Boyd take the blame, but he told our entire team the year we won the Big Ten championship, Coach Dale Evans had come up there, who was his position coach. And, of course, that's how I got to Michigan State, was through that pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
And we had an entire talk about it, about rivalry games. I think maybe before we played Michigan or Notre Dame, both of which we won. But he talked about that game and Jerry Butler laying out and catching that pass from Steve. And how heartbreaking it was to him. It was talked to, because I did not realize that till I was sitting in the room, in the team meeting room, with all these guys that went on to play in the NFL for Michigan State and won a championship. And he went back to his playing days in Columbia and still really loves South Carolina.
Yeah, no question about that. I mean, I remember his playing days, and his name's come up. South Carolina has been looking for a coach. I always tease Rick Sanford because there are pictures, of course, that showed the catch. It was a fabulous play, 1977. What a ball game! Jerry Butler makes a catch zone, and Rick was caught kind of in the picture. I've always picked at him about getting beat, but he's always the first one to say, "That wasn't my just caught in the picture. I was running over there to help." It was, he would say it was Curtis Boyd, I think. But anyway, let's talk about where things stand now, coming off the weekend. Both get home wins. Both are perfect in November. A lot of confidence. South Carolina's at home. Clemson's the favorite. I don't know. How do you assess this one?
Well, I mean, look at last week's games. We couldn't ask for better ball games, first of all. And I know you want to talk about Clemson, Carolina, but South Carolina way to win, and Clemson found a way not to beat themselves, allowed North Carolina to beat themselves and just took over and let their talent do the talking at the end of the game. I felt like both formulas were on display for each team to win. Clemson can't have costly turnovers. Klubnik got away with an interception because there's a late hit on him at one point in the ball game that really turned that ball game around. He can't make those plays against South Carolina, because Spencer Rattler's not going to do that back for you. Clemson and South Carolina cannot come out flat. I don't think they will. But they can't play around and go up and down like they did in Kentucky. Clemson has too much talent, and they've got DBs that can cover. Leggett, they can at least double him and be effective. Kentucky couldn't touch him. As good a wide receivers we've seen at South Carolina, again, I'll say it since Sterling Sharp. And Rattler is as good a passer maybe ever. One of the best college football seen in a long time. And their offensive line has to hold up against probably the best defensive front maybe in all college football. Definitely, you can argue they are, because they're deep and they've been great all year long. There's been no inconsistency with their front seven, and their back four are playing great right now. So Carolina has to be consistent to have a chance to win this football game. They do have an edge in the kicking game, Phil, and we know this. And it could come down to that, because last year I felt like the talent gap was wider. And the biggest thing is South Carolina knows how to beat Clemson. They know they can do it now. You know, as good and talented as Clemson is, they ended the streak, not just the Palmetto Bowl streak, but Clemson's home game win streak in dramatic fashion last year. Clemson's got to put South Carolina away. I don't know if they can, if they're fumbling the ball, which they've done all year long, and even did in this past ball game. They overcame it with tremendous effort and great execution down the stretch. It's going to come down to that, and there's a lot of ifs in there, but this is the kind of football game, as you know, you can throw the records out. And one thing I will say, we have two of the most resilient coaches, the most positive, the most gifted at pumping confidence into their players, even mid-game when things look bad. Look at what Shane Beamer did in Kentucky. I thought they were getting ready to, they were down for the count. I literally told you that. And they got up off the mat and won that game away. And Eamon Worry on defense, anyway, came out of the fourth quarter, was dominant in that fourth quarter. And Eamon Worry played like a beast all night long. So the big players made plays. Is it going to be enough for Carolina? I think Clemson has to fumble this thing or intercept this thing away or lose it in special teams. But we've seen them do that. And we've seen South Carolina force that. And South Carolina is due for a huge upset. They had last year. And they're playing at home. There's a lot of factors. It should be a great game.
Mm-hmm. First and 10 with Zach Willis here on Sports Talk. Looking forward to Carolina and Clemson coming up Saturday night at Williams-Brice Stadium. And, Coach, you talked about going on the road from Clemson perspective and playing in that atmosphere and the like. I think one of the factors that may help South Carolina out is the home field advantage and playing in front of the crowd. And Kate Klubnik never having faced an environment quite like what he's going to see on Saturday. If you're the Clemson offensive staff, how do you try and settle? How big a component could the run game be, maybe taking some of that heat off of him having to play against USC Curry?
Well, I think that South Carolina has to make Kate Klubnik beat them. They can't let Moffa get going and let roll, because they'll kill them. They'll take control of the game. That's how they keep Rattler and the big plays off the field for South Carolina. So that's the game plan. I know Dabo wants to run the football. He wants position. I love the philosophy they're using to win games right now. South Carolina's got to crowd that box, and even Worry and those deep show up, which I think they will. And then we'll see how Klubnik handles it, because and the big thing is this is one game field where Carolina's fans won't leave at halftime or the third quarter, which some of all of them, about maybe 10% like to leave and go to the parking lot. That won't be happening this time. And they're going to be on Clemson from the first part of the game to the thing's over with if they do what they're supposed to do, and Carolina's in the ball game. I think the running game for Clemson is a massive deal, and if they can stop it, they've got a chance to take advantage and pull another big upset.
Zach, let's stay with that running game. Take us inside the headset, if you would, assistant head coach, coordinator, talking to each other. How does that game plan work? Any football fan has seen their team, quote, get away from the run. They might be having success, and then you look up and it's drives since their running kick has touched the football. Who's talking to whom in the headset to make sure you stick with the running game?
Well, I think first your offline coaches, the offensive linemen always love to run football because they can get physical. They're not, in pass protection, they have to be aggressive a little bit on the defensive run. They get to attack the guys on the other side of the ball around. The biggest thing you look at is you want to create leverage inside the box, is between the tight ends, the end men on the line of scrimmage, not the wide receivers, but the blockers up front. The defense is not putting enough men in there to, outnumber the offense. You want to run the football any chance you get. And if you look at Carolina, they're crowding that box. Clemson has to find a way. And that means putting a bunch of guys in the line of walking up in there and blitzing. Clayton White's done a great job of having guys remind me a little bit of Joe Lee Dunn when he was at South Carolina, Mississippi State, messing up the assignments for the offensive line. But chance you get to run the ball or throw screen passes or run draws, short passes be as effective. And Dal Loggins has said this for South Carolina as they run. Clemson is so physical in their run game. They've worn North Carolina down. North Carolina's got a heck of a team. They showed that, how much talent they have. But that's the big thing is Dabo, in my opinion, He did it against Notre Dame. If you go back and watch Notre Dame, once they got control, and really not in true control, but they had a touchdown lead, they pinned Notre Dame deep. They kept them there. Their defense threw it out of them a number of times. They could not get out of their own end of the field, and they just pounded them with the run game and let the clock run out once they had a lead. And I think the approach, if they can do it, the last 4 minutes of the first half, if they can get the ball, they'll defer and they'll take opening kickoff and try to drive it. And then you got a 10-point swing. If you get a field goal at the end of the first half, their goal is to have a 14-point swing and sort of be like a punch back in their national championship, in Final Four years. That's the plan for him. Field position and everything revolves around running game, wearing down. Carolina defense is a little bit banged up right now. And Carolina stopped that. Is Hemingway going to be able to show up and do what he did in Kentucky? It's going to be tough because Clemson has a 1-2 punch. It's probably the country. How healthy they are. If Shipley's 100%, he certainly looked at the end of the North game, catching the ball, running the ball, and Maffa coming in, just being Maffa. It's going to be tough, but that's what you look for. Look at how many people South Carolina puts up on the line of scrimmage to try to stop the run, especially on first down. That's going to be a huge down in this ball game. And if South Carolina can do that and slow them, force them to throw it, then bring back the more even up. If Clemson can run it consistently, it's going to be tough for Carolina.
A couple more moments with Zach Wilson talking about the big showdown between the Gamecocks and the Tigers coming up Saturday. At this stage of the season, 11 games in, you're pretty much what you says you are, right? It's hard to remake yourself. We really don't know how good South Carolina is considering the opponents they have faced. That was a good win over Kentucky, caught them at the right time. And Clemson has certainly stepped it up and improved their status. Really make the strong argument that they're a few plays away here and there from having a much better record. And so the question is, which team are we going to see from which team on Saturday night? Excuse me. Which team can maybe try to eliminate the things that kind of put them in the situation? I guess in Clemson's case, it's the turnovers. And in recent history of this series, South Carolina has beaten Clemson. The Tigers have aided the Gamecock cause quite a bit. It's in their head, that they've been fumbling and turning the ball over with regularity this season. In their head that it happens a lot in this series. So if you're Dabo Swinney, what do you do?
Well, you have to obviously stick with your fundamentals. You build on those. Like I said, the best psychologists in the game as far as getting their kids ready to play. Clemson's biggest deal that I've seen is the red zone turnovers. I mean, if you look at it, have not kept count of the Duke game week. They were fumbling. North Carolina did too, but the red zone going in to, score and then turning the ball over is just devastating psychologically to any football team. And when you got backs like Will Shipley doing it, who's a super dependable, incredible talent, great character kid who loves the game, it really rips your heart out. So that's going to be in the back of their mind. Now, how do they respond to that? If it's me, we practice fundamentals. We practice two hands on that ball, and we make sure we're running behind our pads and doing it. Things you were taught in Little League field. What drives coaches so crazy, and players too, who like Shipley, who's an overachiever, well, not overachiever, but plays like one with Division I talent. Maffa, these kids, Klubnik, they're all kind of the same person. And South Carolina's kind of a mirror team. Carolina's not as talented, but they have the guts and the fight as any team they've ever had. I mean, you have to love this team. I think that's why you see people positive about a 5 and 6 football team, is because they fought their guts out every game. Clemson's played well except inside the red zone every game. Their defense has played well in every game. Special teams, they've improved great. They had horrible kicking early. They're at least average now. So it comes back to focus on doing your job and would, they just have to run as hard as they can and try not to think about not. And that's when that gets in your head. It's like kickers missing field goals. It's like having the yips in baseball. I mean, it can really get bad. I feel like they kind of calmed it down, but I think they said it best Saturday. Shipley has to run angry. He has to go in there with an attitude, the chip on his shoulder, and the revenge factor. Let's not forget that South Carolina won last year. And if there's anything they can see, they'll definitely do it. And, of course, South Carolina, I'm sure, Coach Beamer, we're underdogs in our own stadium. We beat these guys last year. They still don't respect us. And Dabo's going to go back, hey, what are you going to do? They whipped our tails last year. I can hear him right now. It ought to be a heck of a game. I mean, it's got all storylines still for a great football game. And I'm really hoping it'll be one. I think we got a shot to see a classic, another Jerry Butler type game. 1977, we've had a few of those over the years.
Coach, as always, from you. Hope you and the family have a terrific Thanksgiving holiday. Look forward to talking to you next Monday night. We'll chop it up, as they say, and things play out Saturday. You have a great one. Thanks as the contribution.
Yes, an honor, guys, and looking forward. Take care.
Thank you very much. All right, 1st and 10, Zach Willis here on Sports Talk. Interesting stuff from him as he shares his thoughts about what could happen. Excuse me. What could happen and why it would happen if it happens that way on a Saturday night coming. Okay, time to give you the recruiting report tonight here on Sports Talk. It is brought Seawells. Seawells is closed this week. This breaking.
Oh, no wonder you wanted me to come over and get Beamer this week. There's no Seawells.
Wait, does this mean no recruiting report?
No, there's a recruiting report. There's just no Seawells to go with it. But I'll say this. Seawells, of course, handles the buffet for the media at USC. Mm-hmm. And they rolled out, Pat, you would have loved this. It brought tears to my eyes. Rolled out a piece of roast beef on Saturday night to die for. And it was absolutely delicious. It was not a roast beef Friday. It was a roast beef Saturday.
But was there gravy?
There was. Oh, no, nice. Better than that. There was horseradish.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, a little horseradish.
Right, that's interesting.
Yeah,
all right.
Little horseradish in there. So my point is off this week for the holiday. So no daily luncheon buffet, but they're always available around their schedule and yours to cater the big event in your life. So just give them a call at 803-771-7385. It's 803-771-7385 online at SeawellsCateringSC.com. So recruiting, an update on Cameron Fountain, defensive end, 6'6", 237 from Atlanta, visited U.S. actually Saturday for the game, stayed over till Sunday morning, and, of course, had a good time and talked to Shane Beamer. He's been committed to Southern Cal, and in asking him about where things stood, because last time we talked to him a couple of weeks ago, he said he's coming in for this game, going to come back for an official. Things were looking like he would flip to South Carolina. He stunned us last night. He said, I'm going to stick Cal. Most definitely got to. I'm a man of my word, and I believe the coaches can take me. I feel like I put my trust in them. I put my trust in Coach Roy Manning. That's their outside linebackers coach, and Coach Lincoln Riley. I feel like those are some good coaches. In here, we're going to be back as the top program. He said nothing happened in Columbia. It's still a good school and all. I just feel like my coaches that I committed to locked in. I feel good about my commitment. That's why I never flipped. Been talking to their coaches, Southern Cal, lately. The plan is to sign with the Trojans. So I don't think you closed the book on this one yet, still, unless South Carolina has signed off on closing the book based on what he's saying. But as of last night, it was Southern Cal. Meantime, got in for an official visit, offensive tackle Andrew Dennis, 6'5", 275, Mount Pleasant, Michigan, former Michigan State commitment. And this was his second official visit since going back on the mid after the dismissal of Spartans coach Mel Tucker in late September. Clemson offensive line coach Thomas Alston has made his remaining targets for the spots he has open in the 24 class, and he now has Clemson among his favorite schools after the visit. He really liked the family atmosphere. He really liked the Paw journey. Hear that from a lot of the through there. He likes the fact that after Clemson, they take care of you. You get your degree. After, if you finish up football, Clemson or after the NFL, he said they make sure you graduate and make sure you're set up to be successful in, likes Thomas Alston. He liked how the offensive line played against North Carolina. But his recruiting journey continues. He's been to Penn State. That was last weekend. He went to Michigan State in the summer. The Spartans are still involved. They're waiting to see who the new coach is, of course. He's Illinois this weekend and then Purdue. He's going to sign in December, but he's not going to announce until the All-American in January. USC running back Anthony Carey of Tampa. He decommitted from Michigan State today. He visited South Carolina Vanderbilt game. He also visited for a game in the 22 season. The Gamecocks hard after running back Daniel Hill of Meridian, Mississippi. He's down to the Gamecocks, Alabama, and Tennessee, and plans to announce at his All-Star game in January. Carey has over 50 offers. Time he committed to the Spartans in June, he had a short list of USC, Michigan State, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, and North Carolina. 2020 safety Jazavian Currents of South be at Florida Saturday for the Florida State game. He was at Ohio State last weekend. Running back George Triplett of St. Simons Island, Georgia, PO offer from USC. He was in on Saturday. Greer receiver Bird, PWO offer from Clemson. USC offered 2026 offensive tackle Aboko from Durham, North Carolina, 6'6", 260, has a brother who's a defensive lineman who committed to Georgia that South Carolina recruited. Clemson offered 2020 receiver Carlton Preston, Woodbridge, Virginia. He was in on Saturday. One-time USC target offensive tackle Jordan Seaton of IMG Academy has a new 7, and USC is not in it. The new list is Tennessee, Oregon, Colorado, Florida, Alabama, Maryland, and Ohio State. 2026 running back Tony O'Banner of Thomas Hayward plans to visit USC on Saturday night. There you go, recruiting from Sports Talk, brought to you by Seawells. All right, fellas, final thoughts before we hit the good night button. Chris, what you got?
Can I throw out an unpopular take real quick?
Yeah.
The Carolina-Clemson game, obviously the most interest. The most important game this weekend, though, is over at Coastal. Chanticleer is playing for a Sun Belt East Division championship on Saturday against James Madison.
Correct, not popular. Smitty, real quick.
Hey, you mentioned earlier that Xavier Leggette's got to be top 5. Just don't forget Sterling Sharp, Sidney Rice, Alshon Jeffrey, Kenny McKenzie, Farrell Cooper, Debo Samuels, and Brian Edwards.
Well put. Have a good night.
Someone will be right with you. The point.
WXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107. The point.